In this exercise, I'm going to introduce you to smooth points and Bezier curves inside of Illustrator. I've gone ahead and saved my progress as blobbygreenhead.ai, found inside the 09 pen tool folder. And here's the idea. I'm going to switch over to my wide arrow tool for a moment. Everything that we've made so far is a corner point. So if I click on these spikes, for example, and if I grab any one of the anchor points, you can see that it forms a sharp corner in the path outline. Now, it doesn't have to be a sharp corner. It could be a fairly obtuse corner if you want it to be, but it's still going to be a corner between two straight segments. Whereas the next kind of point that we'll be creating is a smooth point, which is a continuous intersection between two arcing segments. Now, here's how you create a smooth point. Go ahead and grab the pen tool. Of course, you can get it by pressing the P key. Notice we have a little X next to the pen tool cursor to show us that we're going to create a new path outline. Rather than clicking with the tool, which results in a corner point, I want you to drag with the tool like so. The point at which you begin dragging is the anchor point, and as you drag away from that anchor point, you create two symmetrical control handles. Notice because the two control handles are symmetrical, they form a kind of seesaw. So you get this back and forth effect. Now, that's all very interesting, of course. What in the world do they do is the larger question. Well, I'm going to go ahead and drag down like so. So then I'm creating one control handle that goes upward and another that goes downward from the anchor point. And then I'll drag from this point right there down and right from the first anchor point. And I'm going to drag over to the right like so. So I create a control handle over on the left-hand side, a symmetrical control handle, and then I have one right below my cursor. And as a result, I end up creating this smooth arc between these two anchor points. And then I'll go ahead and draw another one upward like so, and I'll draw another one right there. And then I will complete the shape, not by clicking on this first anchor point, but rather by dragging on it. You can get away with clicking inside, say, Photoshop with your pen tool. In Illustrator, I'll go ahead and press Control-Z or Command-Z on the Mac to undo the closing of this path. If you click on that point, then you're going to convert it into a kind of clipped corner point, which is known as a cusp point. And we'll come back to that later. But for now, just don't do that. If you want to end the path in a smooth, continuous arc, go ahead and press Control-Z, Command-Z on the Mac, and redraw this point by dragging along it. And notice that sort of non-intuitively, I have to say, but this is the way it works, you're creating a control handle in the opposite direction of your drag. Because after all, the other control handle, the one that's associated with the direction of your drag, is already created. Anyway, this will become more and more familiar to you as you work with the tool. But here's the thing. One of the initial frustrations of working with the pen tool, not only is it a little bit unusual to get used to in terms of dragging with this tool to create the smooth points and so on, but also it's very difficult to get anything other than lumpy results. And that's one of the things we'll be working on in this chapter, how to get smooth results out of this tool. And we're going to start right now. What I want you to do is draw an absolutely perfect circle. Now, even somebody who's been in the trenches for years and years and years like me, I've been using this tool since it came out 23 years ago. I cannot just sit down and draw a perfect circle with the pen tool, mostly because I don't have that much practice with doing so. After all, we already have a tool that draws perfect circles, the ellipse tool. So why in the world would you draw a perfect circle with a pen tool? Well, I just want you to get a sense for how it works and how to do it. And you'll be doing something that nobody ever does. This is an absolute amazing work of craftsmanship that you're about to pull off. So I'm going to go ahead and get rid of this existing sort of lumpy circle right here by pressing the backspace key a couple of times. That would be delete a couple of times on the Mac. And then I'm going to scroll over to a more or less empty portion of my illustration here. If I want it to be really empty, then I could click on this little jumble of shapes here in front of Ancient Image in the Layers panel in order to turn Ancient Image off for the time being. All right, now I want you to go ahead and grab your ellipse tool, which you can get by pressing the L key. And if you don't see it, obviously, you'd click and hold on the rectangle tool, choose ellipse from the flyout menu. And then just go ahead and draw yourself an ellipse or a circle, I don't care, just some shape. And it's going to be this wonderful, perfect shape. It may be filled with green instead of white, as it is in my case. Doesn't matter for our purposes. Then I want you to go ahead and grab your wide arrow tool. I want you to click off the shape for a moment to deselect it, and then I want you to click on the top point right there in order to select it. Now, notice what you have right there. I went ahead and clicked on an anchor point in order to select it. And on either side of that anchor point are two symmetrical control handles, and they control the curvature of this path outline. Now, let's get a sense of what's going on with these control handles, how they work. Why in the world are they called Bezier curves? Well, Bezier is named after a guy named Pierre Bezier, who's a French car designer who came up with this approach in the first place. So unlike the spline curve that we saw earlier, where the anchor points don't actually ever quite touch the path outline, in the case of a Bezier curve, every single anchor point appears on the outline of the path. So the path is anchored down at that point, hence the term anchor point. Whereas the control handles, they do not touch the path. Rather, instead, they pull at the path. And you can actually modify these control handles to any degree you like. So every single shape that you draw inside of Illustrator is an editable Bezier path. You don't have to draw your paths using the pen tool if you don't want to. You can start with any other tool that draws paths inside the program and then modify those paths using a combination of the white arrow tool as well as a bunch of other tools inside of Illustrator. Pathfinder operations, such as we're going to see in the next chapter, and so on. But anyway, right now in my case, I'm dragging this control handle, and notice that the control handle tugs at the curvature of the segment. So I'm pulling the segment away as I draw away from the segment, and I'm pushing it back towards straightness as the control handle approaches the segment, like so. So it flattens out the closer that the control handle gets to it, and then it becomes rounder and rounder as the control handle moves away. And you can create a kind of S shape. Notice this. If I pull one control handle one direction, like so, and then the other control handle the other direction, then I'm creating a kind of looping S right there. And what Illustrator is trying to do where the path outline is concerned, it's taking the path outline right through the anchor point, and then the path outline is attracted magnetically, once again, toward that control handle. And then as it starts going farther and farther away, it starts to fall under the gravitational pull of the other control handle. Now, it looks like it's awfully far away at this point from this control handle to be attracted to it, but that's basically what's going on. Imagine that we have a couple of planets right here, or stars, if you will. Each one of the control handles is a star, and the path is some kind of cosmic gas that is being pulled back and forth between the two stars. So that's basically what's going on. The path has to go through the anchor point, then it's gravitationally attracted to those control handles. And again, this will become more and more obvious as we work with Bezier paths inside of Illustrator, not only over the course of this chapter, but over the course of the entire series as well. Anyway, let's go ahead and get rid of this messed up path that I've created so far. I'm going to just go ahead and press the backspace key a couple of times, the delete key on the Mac, and then I'll switch back over to the ellipse tool, draw an ellipse once again. And this ellipse is going to serve as a kind of tracing template that we will trace using the pen tool beginning in the next exercise.